Welcome to Weasel Digital, and welcome to So You Wanna Fly. This is a instructional video for new players on how best to equip their favorite ship so that they can use them in battle to the best effect. Before we get into today's episode about the Defender, we have a word from our sponsor, the Endor Forest Cafe. Endor Forest Cafe is a family-friendly dining experience with their galaxy-wide famous Boar Wolf rib platter or their brand new Tip G Chur slider platter. This is a tip yip inside a G-jaw inside a churri, roasted up, sliced thin, and stacked high on sliders. Come on down to the Endor Force Cafe for a good time. Alright, so now the Defender. TIE Defender is based on prototype blueprints. This experimental TIE Defender systems offer amazing performance to pilots skilled enough to manage them. If we look at our stats, we see that the hull is a 400. Now that's the lowest hull rating in the game. That's below even an A-wing. Max shields is fairly high, and that's how it compensates for that low hull. The 1200 shield rating does put it on par with a Y-wing, which is a pretty substantial amount of shields. Max speed is 130. Now that's a little bit lower than the TIE Fighter or TIE Interceptors. Max acceleration is very high, tying with the Interceptor. Maneuverability is down there with the TIE Bomber and the X-Wing, however. So you have kind of a weird conundrum about this craft. It doesn't excel anywhere. It's got some pretty stark weaknesses. It is not a ship that I would recommend to a new player. I think you're going to do better with, a TIE Fighter, for instance. It's just a better all-around fighter that performs better in combat. That's not to say the Defender is bad. It just takes more skill to really get the most out of it. If you are set on flying a Defender, though, I do want to give you one quick build that should help you get your feet wet with this ship. I would stick with the standard laser cannon. The burst cannon is nice. It has a little more damage and whatnot, but the burst fires do make it somewhat hard to lead moving targets. So it's going to be harder to hit quicker targets. And if you miss with that whole burst, you're losing a lot of damage. The laser cannons fire at a nice pace, and it makes it easy to put out a line of fire, start tracking that target, and really start putting hits on your target. I'm going to come back to auxiliary. We're going to skip that for right now. Countermeasures, we are going to stick with the Seeker warheads. For our hull, the best option is the dampener hull. You lose a little bit of health, but you don't have much anyways. And it doubles the amount of time it takes for enemies to lock their missiles on you.
You have a good eye.
For shields, I would go with the ray shields. This is a large target. It's a fairly slow target, and it's very susceptible to damage. Now, we've already increased our lock time, and we have our countermeasures. So the ray shields, what they do is they actually increase auxiliary damage, so you'll take more damage from missiles, but it will reduce the primary damage you take, so damage from blasters. So this should help reduce overall damage. For our engines, I would suggest leaving those the same as your standard just twin ion engines. Now back to our auxiliary weapons. The default for the TIE Defender is the Advanced Power System, or APS. And it's a good system, but it takes a little bit of skill to actually use and use right. So because of that, it's not really what I would say is a good choice for beginner players. How the APS works is it's a 20-second cooldown, and it basically takes the place of the power shunt ability of the TIE Fighter, Interceptor, and Bomber. In those ships, if you have all your power to engines and you're building up that boost charge, you can double-click a button and shunt that power from engines to your weapons to give a short temporary burst to your weapons. It can refill ammo. It can power up your weapons a little bit. So they're very flexible ships due to that. Since this ship has shields, it actually has 3 different power systems to work with, and it loses that shunt ability. That's what the APS is here to replace. And so the APS will give a boost when you use it to whatever system you happen to have powered. So if you look down below, you can see that it gives a 75% boost to engines, or a 75% boost to weapons, or 50% boost to shields. Or if you have your power evenly distributed, it'll do a 30% boost to all of them. That all system charge is almost worthless. It gives you a very short boost to engines, and if you don't have power to engines, this ship loses that boost power in engines very quickly. 30% boost to shields is not overly effective, although that's not much worse than the 50% if you actually have power to shields. And the 30% to weapons is kind of negligible. Again, if you don't have power to weapons, you can start losing weapon power really quickly. So you really have to pick which system you need to power up. And that can be a problem. Let me explain. If you're in battle, you're tailing someone, you're trying to get them lined up for a shot, and you're shooting at them, and you start taking damage. Your shields start getting drained. If you lose your shields in this ship, you're dead. So suddenly you want to charge your shields. Well, as you're flying and shooting, you're being shot, you now have to switch your power to shields and trigger the APS, all while still flying in battle. It's a complicated process. In the right hands, it's a great system. If you think you can manage it, you can certainly try it. However, for new players, I would highly recommend switching out to one of the other missile systems. The concussion missiles are a simple missile system. They're effective. 6.5 second cooldown, 6 ammo, 2 second lock-on time. However, I might suggest the cluster missiles. This locks on a missile every 0.8 seconds to whatever you have targeted. Cooldown on it is 12 seconds, so the long cooldown between them, 5 overall shots. But you can fire up to 4 missiles per shot, and that's 1,800 damage, which is significant. So I would pick a target, I would be shooting at them, I would build up my missile charge, I would unleash those missiles, and then while that's on cooldown, I would switch over to use my anti-starfighter missiles. They have lower damage, lower lock-on time, lower cooldown, a little bit higher ammo capacity. So you can kind of switch back and forth. Some cluster missiles, use a couple starfighter missiles. By then, your cluster missiles are recharged. This gives you a good just kind of battery of ongoing constant missile fire to augment your blaster fire. So that's the build I would use for a brand new player. Standard laser cannon, cluster missile, anti-starfighter missile, seeker warhead, dampener hull, ray shield, and the regular old twin ion engines. Now, your biggest issues with this ship is that it's extremely fragile. If those shields go down, you're going to be hurting. On top of that, it's a big target. From every angle, this target is big. It's easy to lead, it's easy to hit, it's easy to get lock-ons, and it's pretty slow, so you're not going to be dodging a lot of fire either. So it's really kind of a glass cannon brawler. Pick your target, fly in, do your damage, get out, repeat. Show you just a little bit of gameplay. There's not much to show because it is a very straightforward build, and it's really the only build we're going to do. This ship doesn't really have anything that makes it a really good, close-in knife fighter, doesn't make it a good strafer, doesn't make it good against capital ships. It's really the only purpose for it is fighting other fighters, and it's not necessarily the best there unless you're highly skilled. As with all ships that have shields, one of the first things you should do in any combat situation is charge those shields. That goes doubly for the Defender because the Defender has very little hull, so you're highly dependent upon those shields. Now, the one nice thing about the Defender is its powers do recharge quickly, so you will be able to use quick bursts of things here and there. Again, combat's simple. Go in, lock with your multi-fire, let those loose while you're shooting your target, and then when they blow up, find another target and use your quick lock missiles, and just keep alternating back and forth while you find your targets. You're going to want to make sure that you do knock targets out as quickly as possible, though, because you're not the most durable ship. You have high shields but low hull. You're also slow, so you're very easy to target. Make sure you find those targets, blast them, get out of the area, find a new target.
Target destroyed.
Alright, so there's a little demonstration of what the TIE Defender can do. And again, it's just a straightforward fighter. It works okay. Wouldn't be my first choice for a beginner, but if you really like the Defender, it's a solid build that should get you some kills, should get you on the board, should help your team out. Overall, I'm a little disappointed with how this ship was implemented because I am a huge fan of the TIE Defender in the overall Star Wars canon. But it's not bad, and if you really fly it a lot and you get a little bit better and you start trying out some other stuff like that APS and whatnot, you might find that you can really make something special out of this. So with that, don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Endor Force Cafe. You ever been there? Yeah, I was there once. I was at the Mall of Coruscant. And yeah, we needed to get lunch. The kids saw this place. I mean, even from the outside, inside it's like you're actually in Endor Forest. But it's decorated like that outside too. It's crazy. You get in there. There's all these animatronic robots. There's Churies and Tip-Yips and Boar Wolves and all this stuff. And it looks kind of neat. But then, like every 10 minutes or so, suddenly there's like a storm that comes through, and they play all this loud noise, and all the animatronics come alive and start moving around and making noises. And suddenly it's like you're just assaulted by all this noise. And it's scary to little kids. It's headache inducing to adults. I'm not sure what the draw really is. But then the weirdest part, though, got in there and I see all the animatronic stuff, and they have these, what I assume are animatronic Ewoks too, right? No, they're not animatronic. They're just standing there, stone still, until all the other effects come on. And then these Ewoks jump down from their spots along the wall, and they start poking you with their spears and yelling yub yub at you, and it's surreal. It is just bizarre. Then the sound's cut off and all the Ewoks go back, and you're just like left there wondering what the heck just happened. I have no desire to really go back.